Hello everybody, Miss Hone here again. I got a little smarter and this time I figured out how not to put my face on the vodcast, so you won't have to stare at me, which makes me happy and probably will make you happy too. Okay, so part 2 of the Imperialism review is right here, and after this all we've got left is the test. So if you've probably seen this before. If you do a Google image search on imperialism, you get this imperialism, and it's basically a hand holding the globe saying you came, you played, you conquered, right? Which is kind of what happened in imperialism. It was all about conquering. I'm getting better at Keynote, fancy effects. So remember the motives for imperialism. So here's a list of 5 motives. The first is sort of an old imperialism motive, the lust for loot. So you were stealing wealth and treasure. So it'd be the Spanish going to Latin America and stealing gold and things like that from the Aztecs and the Mayans. Missionary, of course, was a huge one in imperialism, to spread Christianity, to save the little souls of those people. Economically, new markets and raw materials had everything to do with industrialization, and because Britain and France and Germany had all started the Industrial Revolution, had these factories, could have high output of goods. They needed materials to make those goods, and then they needed new markets to sell those goods to. Strategic, you would take a colony, not because you necessarily wanted it, but because it would help you protect one of your other colonies that was probably more important. An outlet for surplus population, that's self-explanatory. You had too many people, you just sent them somewhere else. Seriously, that's flashy. Old imperialism versus new imperialism. So old imperialism, we talked about briefly, but remember, it is gold, gospel, and glory. So you're after the loot, you're after Christianity, the spread of Christianity, and you're after the glory. Right? He who dies with the most colonies wins. New imperialism changed. It became more economic. It was more about finding new markets and finding raw materials. But still an element of Christianity, an element of treasure hunting, and certainly an element of striving to be number one. The Berlin Conference, just a quick rehash, that was in 1884. And basically the purpose was to divide Africa up amongst the mother countries. No Africans were even invited. So basically it was the big mother countries, all European, and they just got a map of Africa and a jiffy marker and started to carve it up. Commercial colonialism. I know we've talked about this, but it bears rehashing, probably because I wrote the exam and I know it's on there. But commercial colonialism is when a company is given control over a colony. So an example, the British East India Company was given India. Bad idea, of course, because they were the ones who didn't care about the culture or anything like that. They're the ones that gave them all bullets that were greased with either beef fat or pork fat. And that's where we got the Sepoy Rebellion. Remember, Sepoys were hired Indian soldiers. Another example, the Hudson's Bay Company was given Canada. Bad idea. They purportedly gave out blankets containing smallpox to the First Nations people. And smallpox was a huge epidemic in North America. It's estimated that it killed 65% of First Nations people because it spread so quickly. It was a new disease. They hadn't had it. They had been there 11,000 years, had never had smallpox. And it was given to them as a gift. Probably one they didn't want. So imperialism in Canada, if we're looking at Canada specifically, 95% of Canada's population is considered to be descendants of immigrants. We all came from somewhere. Maybe you didn't, maybe your parents didn't, maybe your grandparents didn't, but back in your past, your parents came from, somebody in your past came from somewhere else. So for example, for me, my great-great-great grandparents, I think I've got that right, came to Canada in 1805, right? But they came from England. Everybody came from somewhere. But 5% of Canada's population is truly Canadian because they have ties to the land that go back 11,000 years. Archaeologists have determined that for 11,000 years, First Nations people have been here. There's quite a large discussion on where they came from. Chances are good they came over the Bering Strait, because there used to be land that connected Alaska to Russia. Some people even think they came on boats. Archaeology is fascinating. The political impact of imperialism in Canada was treaties. Treaties divided up the land, and it was very political. It was the government who did it. The cultural impact of imperialism was the residential schools, which was also political. The government set those up. But that's where we see the loss of culture, and we see some of the devastating effects that residential schools and cultural imperialism have provided Canada. Okay, so that's kind of the end of my review. So you take the first review, tie it with the second, you're going to be golden. But here's some tips for multiple choice. You get to mark up this test. I am giving you a test. So you can use a highlighter, you can use whatever you want, a Sharpie, I don't care. So circle, cross out. You see, if you're looking at question number 3 and you know A is not the answer, well, just cross it out. Right after you, and then on the test, circle your answers. And then after you circle your answers on the booklet, you can transfer them to a Scantron form, or you can put them right on the Scantron form right away if you're okay with that. It's only 35 questions, and it's not a race. And please remember to bring a pencil and an eraser. Pens don't work on a Scantron form. That's your fastest way to get a 0%. It's Tuesday. I don't think it's going to take you very long for the multiple choice. The written is a slightly different story. And so by the time you read this, or time you check out this Camtasia vodcast, you'll undoubtedly have gone through Monday's classes with me, and we will have talked about the written response, and I've given you some samples and things like that. But it also will be fairly minor. So I think Tuesday is your time to shine. So do what you need to do to review for this test. I think if you've looked at this podcast and the one that came before it, I think that's more review than most people ever do for a test. So congratulate yourself for a job well done. And now I have to figure out how to turn this off. See you guys later. Seriously. Camtasia, what are you doing to me? There we go. Oh, the rainbow wheel of death. Stop recording. Bye, guys.